Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to a CI Chit Chat. It is a early morning out here in Denver, Colorado at the Commodity Classic, but excited to be here with you all, and I'll get headed home here in just a little bit. It's been a good show out here. Maybe I'll circle back to that here in just a minute. A CI Chit Chat is where we talk about CI, which is carbon intensity. And we talk a lot about it because of the 45Z tax credit and just other emerging opportunities in the decarbonization space. As companies continue to look to farmers as part of their solution, every single bushel of grain that you grew last year, going to grow this year, it all has a carbon intensity score. It's a default until replaced. I'd think of it as kind of a you're guilty until proven innocent kind of thing here, where your CI score is 29 until you replace it. That's where we're here to help replace that score and help you to get it verified, which I'm going to circle back on that, especially that I've got my guest here with me today, our VP of Operations, Carolyn King. And she's been on before, but we're going to talk about a very exciting announcement here in a little bit and dig into some of the details in that regard. Let me give kind of the quick updates of some of the stuff that's going on. So in DC, we still have just the public comment period is open, not a whole lot of movement. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of movement until after the public comment period ends and whatnot. Continuum will be submitting our public comment this week, and we will be emailing out our public comment, emailing out a couple core talking points that we are really pushing on, and also emailing out uh, the link and the information about where you can go if you wish to submit your own public comment. So that'll be coming this week. I know we've talked a lot about it. It's due, or the USDA public comment period ends on March 17th. So we've got, about a little over a week to be able to get that done, week and a half to be able to go in and get your public comment submitted. I guess almost 2 weeks. So trying to give everyone enough time to take a look at our thoughts, put together your own thoughts, and ultimately make your own opinion and provide feedback to the USDA if you feel inclined to do so. So that's the big thing going on there. Out here at Commodity Classic, Secretary of Ag Brooke Rollins was here. She talked on Sunday, and I didn't get in time to actually be there in person and hear her talk. But the takeaway from multiple people I've talked with that were at it was that she gave, fairly political talk, is how it was described to me. A lot of the key political talking points, different points where she can get a good round of applause from everybody, but they didn't necessarily provide much for solutions or here's what we're going to do to address for some of these issues and move forward. So that's obviously worrisome, but good to have her here. Good to have her talking about some of the key points in ag. Um, and now we'll see what is going to happen as the administration gets to work. Um, she didn't necessarily talk about 45Z. She talked positively about biofuels and whatnot. She's talked positively about 45Z in the past, but it sounds like in this talk at Commodity Classic, she didn't really talk about it at all. So um would have been good for her to give a little bit of insight, of course, but ultimately 45Z is in the hands of the Department of Treasury and the IRS, so she didn't really address it or do anything. So hard to tell what's going to go on in DC. I'll be there in about a week and a half and try to get some more insight myself. But at this point, get the public comment period done, and we go from there. So uh, even though DC is kind of in a weird holding pattern right now, at Continuum, we definitely are not. And moving forward, helping farmers to get their scores put together and go through an audit process and all that. And extremely excited to provide some updates on that. But why don't I tee that over to Carolyn first? Carolyn, maybe introduce yourself and share some of our big news.
Yeah, so like Mitchell said, my name is Carolyn King. I am the VP of Operations here at Continuum. Been here for a little over 4 years, which is crazy to think about how much has changed in the last 4 years. But grew up on my family's farm in Western Illinois and have been, involved in like soil health and sustainability things for quite some time now, especially being here at Continuum. So I won't give you guys a super long intro because I'm super pumped to tell you what we got accomplished. This is like a year and a half in the making, probably, especially over the last 6 months. We've really been buckling down on getting these CI scores verified and put together. If you were in our first round of verification, we've been calling it tranche one. You know how long and grueling of a process this has been. So we're really, really excited that it's done officially. The scores have been delivered and it's all wrapped up. So I'll share the numbers, and this went out in a press release yesterday as well.
Carolyn's done, but we passed. You missed the most important part. We passed the audit.
Oh, well, yeah. If we're sharing that's a good thing. If we're sharing the
We
numbers, we
got it.
passed the audit.
We passed
Um,
the audit.
yes, we passed the audit. So I guess I can kind of give like a layout of the whole process too. But
Yep.
um, essentially, we'll just talk about it, and then we'll tell them at the very, very end.
There you go.
Yeah, so essentially what we've been doing over the last year or so is gathering data from farmers on exactly what practices happened on each field that they had enrolled. So they would go to topsoil, enter that practice information there, and then also supply supporting evidence with that information as well. That supporting evidence looks like shape files or receipts or PDF application maps, those kinds of things to prove that they did what they said they did. And then after all of that was submitted to us, we went through a third-party verification with EgoEngineers, which was a really, really intense process of just combing through every single piece of that data. We prepped it that way, made sure that it was all correct, and then Eco selected 5 or 6 farmers to like dig in even further from their side. So that included site visits, that included a couple weeks of just like combing through all of it and making sure that everything matched, validating it, answering a ton of questions. It was a really long couple weeks there to get it all done. But because of all that and all the hard work from the Continuum team and the farmers to really get the data in and get it done right the first time, we passed the audit. Eco told us that that does not happen often, that people pass the first time, which we did not know. So that was really, really exciting to have that done. Definitely a weight lifted from me and my team to have it over since it's been such a long process. So we passed. We got our A, maybe an A plus. I'm not sure. They don't grade it that
Yep.
way. But yeah, that
Passing is passing. We'll take
that's
it.
right.
We'll take it
That's
as
right.
that.
Yep.
And so that meant, that everything that we claimed, we now are able to issue these verified certificates, right? We call them CI certificates. USDA calls them biofuel feedstock reports, but essentially it's just saying, farmer, here is how many certificates you created per field, meaning here's how many bushels you produce on that field, and here's the CI score of that. And so we were able to issue that, hey, that actually is legit. It passed through third party audit. And the audit protocol is ISO 14065, which we are, I never knew we would be carbon specialist or carbon intensity specialist, let alone have to be audit protocol specialists. But 14065 is what was named in the 40B guidance that came out in what have been March of,
Yep.
right? No,
Almost
it
a
must have
year.
been
It
no,
was
it
at
was
the
March of
end of
2024.
March. Yeah,
I was
almost a year
thinking
ago.
March of 2023. I'm like, wait a second, no. So March of 2024, the IRS published the final rules for 40B, which was the sustainable aviation fuel tax credit. And in that guidance, it said that to verify the climate smart ag practices, they called it, that you need to undergo a 14065 ISO audit. And so we took that and some of the other insights from 40B. We took some of the insights from 45Z language that had been proposed up to that point, and we engaged with eco engineers to say, all right, we need to go and create a audit protocol which is this 14065, and the protocol they basically put onto us is called 14064. And they basically work in conjunction. It's still kind of confusing to me, to be honest, but 14065, 14064 working together. And so we put together a MRV protocol, which is the measurement, reporting, and verification protocol. We put that together saying, here is all of this information that goes into the GREET model, including fertilizer practices, tillage practices, cover crop, uh, the manure practices, yield, like land management stuff, as far as how to define a boundary and how to define grower, farm, field, and entity information. So we had to put together this audit protocol with Eco, and this has never been done before. None that I've ever seen it, at least for sure. When it comes to how to verify the carbon intensity score of a bushel of corn, it's basically what we were doing, but doing it at massive scale. So we put together that protocol with Eco. Yeah, many of you here on the call enrolled in the program, added your fields, added your data, added your evidence, and we submitted it to Eco. So, and Carolyn, you mentioned that they did site visits with some of the farmers, and they randomly selected a square root of the farmers in order and looked at that based on the risk assessment of, okay, here is the risk that this farmer may be out of bounds, or a risk that this project may be out of bounds, and they put um, the actual audit protocol or the site visit protocol together based on the risk assessment. So there's a whole process to it that we were completely new to, but they went through and selected some of the farmers and actually went and physically sat at each person's kitchen table, basically, and went through that audit. So I liken it a little bit to like an organic farmer, but an organic farmer has to bring out an auditor every year, every farm. Where in the ISO 14065 protocol, we can blend together a project of lots of different farms, run a risk assessment on those farms, randomly select a square root of the farmers and have them get audited to represent the rest of the group. And so, therefore, not every single person has to undergo the audit. So, it makes it much easier for everybody involved. Sure, there's some farmers that were chosen, but even those farmers, the feedback that I've received from them was, hey, that really wasn't that bad. And Carolyn, you were at a lot of those on farm
Yeah.
site visits. That to me is kind of the like scary thing, right? Of like, geez, I'm gonna have these auditors come out to my farm if I get chosen. But maybe explain how that process actually went when the auditors came and sat down at the farm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was nervous and didn't know what to expect, and it wasn't my farm. So I'm sure that they were a little bit nervous as well. But you're right. A lot of them said afterwards, like, oh, I was expecting that to be way more intense, and it really wasn't too bad. So what we did is they selected the farmers for audit, and Brad, our COO, and I split up who of which was going to which one from Continuum Ag. And I mean, we did just sit down at their kitchen table, and basically the auditors from Eco would just ask a list of questions. There were a lot of questions. For some people, we were there for, a couple hours. Um, but it was just essentially questions that we had already been asking the farmers, and information that they had already been supplying to us. So they were able to answer questions about tillage or cover crop practices, or fertilizer usage, kind of whatever is going into the GREET model that's really, really important, to really calculate the score correctly. And we were just there to support and help clarify anything if needed. And that was about it. It was pretty simple. After the interview, we would go look at the fields and make sure that they actually existed. And that was it. We were on our way to the next one. So it was a pretty smooth process. Definitely went a lot faster than I was expecting it to. I am glad that it was only 6 farmers this first go around,
Mhm.
because it was a long week for Brad and I, but we got it done and ended up with a positive result because of it. So that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not all farmers that are in our back door. These farms,
Yeah.
the actual program was across multiple states, Luckily, all the farms that they chose for the audit were in the Midwest, but yeah, a lot of running around. But it's basically just checking up on. We claimed that here's the practices that we did. We claimed that we did the practices on these fields, and they come out and basically do a double check, right, and do a ground truth site visit. It's basically exactly what it says it is, and they're going to ask the questions as well about what practices did you do and check up to everyone, and the they're going to check up on that and make sure that it's legit and issue out the certificates from there. So, but anyway, yeah. So they took that data back and they put together the actual audit report, I guess they call it, right? And we
Yep.
passed. So then, Carolyn, you sent out basically the final reports to all of the farmers of here's all your fields and here's all the certificates that were created. Basically, it's just a here's how many bushels you had and here was the final CI score. And there we go. Now the problem, of course, is what I'm working on is okay, now we created these certificates, but what's the opportunity to get them sold, right? And obviously that's the whole point is creating verified certificates to the note of these ISO protocols and what the government is saying that they want to see. Of course, we don't have the final 45Z rules, but there's a lot of precedent as to here's how it's going to be. So here is the actual scores and stuff that came out, and here's what you were issued. Now we basically have to see how the dust is going to continue to settle to go get them purchased by a company, whether that be an ethanol plant. And there are plenty of facilities that are starting to work with their farmers and starting to pay out small amounts to farmers. So we're continuing to bring those opportunities to our farms. But there's still kind of a holding pattern that we're sitting in right now, unfortunately, as well. That we've got all the certificates, got them verified, got them ready to go. And some ethanol plants may be interested in getting them purchased, or other parties may be interested in getting them purchased. But for the most part, it's still going to take some time to settle out. But at least our farmers, they've passed through the audit. We've got their data put together. They are ready to roll. We have proven that we can pass the audit. That was like the biggest thing for me in this whole learning curve is we had never done one of these before, and we had never gone through an audit before. So going through this whole protocol of creating an audit protocol, submitting a significant number of farms through it, and passing that, that's really the proof that I wanted to see is what does the process look like, start to finish. And now after going through that once, now we know exactly how to speed it up, scale it up, do it smarter, do it better from our side as well. That it was a huge learning curve on our end, and now we feel like we have a much better grasp on what the heck audit number two will look like for the next batch of farmers that be coming in. And what I saw, there are a couple questions coming in and stuff. Carol, maybe you can address some of them too on here or direct back to the person. But um, the actual certificates of what they look like, that's actually still a little bit unknown. Like I don't know exactly what they're going to need to look like. Ultimately, what we are preparing for is that those certificates basically are currently in a database. I think of it as every single farm that was submitted has a known number of bushels, therefore a number of certificates. It has a CI score, and it now has an audit status of it passed the audit, and we've got the audit report number and all that thing that it can be tied back to. So now it's basically sitting there in this database of here's all the certificates that we created. What we are working on with the ethanol plants is to be able to tie that report to a scale ticket. So when the farmer delivers the grain or is selling these certificates, it's tied into the scale ticket where it can be directly ingested into the ethanol plant's current software system. What we know, or what we anticipate, is that every single ethanol plant will have to undergo a 14065 audit as well, and they can basically license ours, or we can work with those ethanol plants, and help to collect the data for their farmers and put them through this ISO audit. But farms that have already passed the audit, they it the way that the initial language reads is once you pass the audit once, you don't have to undergo it again. So since you already passed the audit, it's much less risky from the buyer side because they know you already passed the audit once, what you're claiming is legit, and now that data can be ingested into their management systems and you can receive a premium. What we are talking about specifically to the question is that what is being sold from farmer to ethanol plant is the biofuel feedstock report. So that report is basically, here is a report representing that load of grain, call it 1,000 bushels, right, for easy math. So here's a report that represents 1,000 bushels. Here are the fields that are included in that report. Here are the CIs of those fields, and therefore here's a weighted average carbon intensity score of that load. And then it also has to include the farmer attestation. So that was another part of our process. We kind of skipped over it, Carolyn, that before the farmers were submitted to, or as the farmers were finalized their data and got submitted, they signed an attestation that, hey, here, my data is my data. I plugged it into Topsoil and it is legit, because all we know is what the farmer put in to topsoil, right? That's all we can know is here's what the farmer said that they did. The farmer attested that it was legit. Now, of course, we need to continue to improve our software process because, in my mind, that audit and checking and validating your practices is probably our weakest spot right now. But we know how to get it better. We actually have some really great things happening right now to build out better systems for the next batch of audit and make sure that farmers have an additional opportunity to kind of double check themselves as well. And we can make sure that we catch anomalies early. So really building out those systems now that we've undergone the audit once and understand how to catch errors, how to catch mistakes, how to make sure that the farmer and us were on the same page in regards to the practices that occurred and the CI outcomes that are a result of that. Um, but yeah, basically at this point, we're also partnering with multiple other partners on the back end to help to track where the certificates were created and where they were retired. We'll be announcing a partnership with Millpond here soon. They help to cross-reference and avoid double counting. They help to do the tracking from the farm to the end retirer of the certificates. So got a lot of that system ready, but we need the buyers. We need 45Z to come through or companies that are doing pilot projects. And we've got the certificates ready to go and continue to prove out the tracking system from farm to user. But Carolyn, did I miss anything else, sir?
Nope, I think that's all of it. Should we share what the actual numbers were in case people
I was
didn't see
just gonna say, yeah, we skipped over that before. So
it?
talk about the scope of the thing. We talk a
Yeah,
lot here, right? That we have scored over 350 million bushels in topsoil, but those are preliminary scores, 350 million bushels. Then farmers participated in the audit, which we were charging $7 an acre to do, and that resulted in,
I told Mitchell that I would be on the CI Chit Chat this week on one condition, and it was if I got to say the numbers. So
yeah,
get on the edge of your seats, everyone. We ended up certifying 29 million bushels, just over that, which represented 147 farmers across over 10 states. So it was a big deal. It was a lot of work, but 29 million bushels, 29 million certificates is what we ended up with.
yeah, that is huge. Let's see, Carolyn, are you able to see the chat and some of the stuff coming in?
Yep, Steve, I will email you with some notes on that so I can kind of look into what the differences were when I have a little bit more time here when we're finished. And then I think you got the other question.
Steve saying,
Uh-oh, we can't hear you.
oh my bad.
There
I'm
we go.
dorking with the chat. Steve scores all between 1 and 10. Like those are phenomenal scores. Number one, well done, Steve. But yeah, Carolyn, you can check in on some of the differences between them. But yield is a big thing in there. So maybe any of the yield stuff or any of the other management. But Carolyn can take another look.
Yep.
The certificates. So the other question is the certificates. It's one certificate per bushel, but those are basically aggregated at a field by field basis. So what we did is it's the field average fertilizer rates, field average yield. Did the field have cover crop? Did the field have strip till or no till? It was done at a field level. And that's ultimately, I think, going to be the best way to continue to do it. Now, technically, we could essentially score each zone or even each yield monitor point, essentially. A combine monitor creates a point every second as it drives across the field and creates a yield once per second. Technically, we could run a CI score at that level. Now we're not going to do that because it's not necessary. Just doing it at the field level is the way to do it, and it's basically here's the field. If that field had 15,000 bushels produced on it, it gets generated 15,000 certificates. Those certificates go in the database and in the back end clearinghouse that mill plant has. We started with 15,000 certificates, and then we can help to document where those certificates were sold. Obviously, 15,000 just being an arbitrary number. It's representative of how many bushels you actually produced. I think was that question coming in? What's the range of scores?
Yeah, I was just
Alan, do you
looking
kind of
at.
have that off the top of your head? It's a really big range.
Yeah, so I don't have the official, but it's looking like just from a quick glance, the range was between like -25 all the way up to some stuff that was in the 30s. Keep in mind, I guess some in the 40s too. Keep in mind that this is corn and soybeans that we verified, not just corn. So that's why some of them are a little bit higher. Those soybean numbers typically are above 30 with some pretty normal practices. The scale is different as well. The base number is not 29.1 like it is for corn, so a little bit of a difference there. But the average, I'm guessing, is somewhere around like 15 to 20. We'll get some like official numbers run. We just finished this last Friday, like at
Yeah.
5 o'clock was when we sent the last one out. So I've not run all the fun numbers and stuff yet, but we'll get that and Mitchell can share it maybe on the chit chat
Yeah,
next
I'm sure we'll keep talking about it on future chit chat and whatnot, but a big range, right? So on the corn,
week.
anywhere from a -20 to a mid to low 30s, and the baseline is 29, right? So we had some of the farms that didn't have great scores, not below the default, and but you're going to have some of those. And then we had some of the farms that were all the way down to a -20. On our farm, we averaged a 2.6.
Yep.
So kind of in line with what Steve was talking about on his. On our farm, our soybeans ended up doing a -19. So really excited about that. And yeah, like Carolyn was saying on the soybeans, a lot of times there's not as much opportunity to move the needle on soybeans. And but the default on soybeans is 42, but with no-till and cover crop, you can get significant reduction. That's how we were able to do it on our farm. But like Carolyn was saying, on soybeans, you start at a 42. And so a lot of farms, they're in that 20, 30 kind of range. We see that very consistently, but it's because the starting point is 42. And I think we need to communicate that better, and we'll continue to communicate the impact that the farmer's score makes so that you better understand the value there. But by and large, what this all boils down to is we at Continuum, right? We've kind of had to evolve into who are we going to be in this space, and ultimately, who we are is we are the MMRV for carbon intensity, right? We help provide the measurement, monitoring, reporting, and verification, and now we have done it once with this accredited third-party auditor, EcoEngineers. We have other auditors that we are going to be working with in the future as well. But Eco, very strong reputation in this space. They're based in Iowa, and that's where, ultimately why we went with them. They definitely were not the cheapest, but uh, they've got a really great brand. And these certificates we created, they really mean something. Kudos to all the farmers again that were involved here. It's a big, big deal. I've not seen anybody else that has done one of these. If there is a company out there, I would love to cross collaborate with them and compare notes and whatnot. And as we get more details from the federal government, we will adjust our processes in accordance to that. And if we have to re-audit some things, we will. And of course, we will not charge those farmers who already went through this. We will not charge you anything more if we do have to adjust some stuff or re-audit or what have you, based on any updates coming out of DC in regards to updated protocols or updated measurement systems or what have you. But at this point, we were able to get it passed. We know how to do it. We can now do it again. Big deal. So definitely check out the blog that we put out about it, some of the info there. Um, Carolyn, is there any other notes and stuff coming in? I thought I was seeing some stuff.
Yeah, Michael sent the link for a webinar with EgoEngineers. We also have a webinar on March 19th with the Dirty Glove Award winners. So lots of stuff coming on that as well.
Yes. We have an upcoming webinar and some of our growers that will be talking about the process that they went through. We'll be sending out our public comment stuff here very soon as well. I saw there was a note in there about, hey, how do I get verified? Which we love. Great job. But you can go to topsoil.ag, get your CI score for free, and you can enroll in CI certification from there. We're doing corn and soybeans. At some point in the future, maybe there will be a need to expand, but by and large, I mean, we're going to be the corn soybean guys, and that's what we're set up to do. We verified both corn and soybeans in this audit, but you can get started at topsoil.ag and you can still verify your 2024 crop as well. Now, we'll see how things shake out in the marketplace and what is going to be required of your 2024 crop, but 2024, and then start documenting every detail for 2025 as well. Like Carolyn was talking, we need receipts, we need shape files, we need evidence, so even taking pictures, just keep really strong records. And that's where our software is there to help. And we have Topsoil Connect going right now as well. We can get access to all of those data management tools for just $2 an acre, penny a bushel. So that's how you can really get started. Get started at Topsoil, with Topsoil Connect. And then you can access at our software, topsoil.ag, and get started there, but keep good records. That's what it boils down to. The better records that you keep, the easier it is for Carolyn to pass you on to the auditor.
Yep. The less you have to hear from me and my team hounding you for those records. So if you don't want us to
Yes.
pester you, keep really good records.
That's right. That's right. I like it. All right, we better wrap things up here. Any final party thoughts, Carolyn?
Nope. Glad
Good.
that we made it through. And yeah, thanks everybody that was involved. It was a lot of hard work. But we know what we're doing now. We've done it once and excited to do it again.
That's right. Sweet. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you on a upcoming webinar, and everybody have a great day.